In this chapter, we're going to look at the integumentary system. The integumentary system is also known as the cutaneous membrane. It's our skin and all of the derivatives found within. That includes your hair, your fingernails and toenails, and your sweat and sebaceous or oil glands. As I was reading in your textbook, I found some facts in here I thought are pretty amazing. So on average, every square inch of skin contains approximately 20 feet of blood vessels, 650 sweat glands, 100 sebaceous oil glands, and over 1,000 nerve endings in 1 square inch. Pretty amazing, huh? Our skin is a barrier. It protects the inside of our body from the outside world, but because it is our outer barrier, it's exposed to trauma, chemicals, pollutants, microbes, and the damaging UV rays from the sunlight. Changes in the color of the skin can reflect body disorders or anomalies, or something as simple as a sunburn or a tan, or jaundice if your liver's not working properly. Skin changes and lesions can also indicate infections or diseases. The study and treatment of the integumentary system is known as dermatology. The skin itself makes up about 7% of your body weight. It's composed of all of the tissue types. So the surface is epithelial layers that protects the underlying layers. The connective tissue is deep to the epithelium, and it provides strength and structure and resilience to the skin so it doesn't tear. The connective tissue also contains smooth muscles that are a part of our hair follicles. They're called erector pili, and that's what makes your hair stand on end when you get goosebumps. And nervous tissue provides receptors that detect and monitor stimuli such as touch, pain, temperature. I mentioned that about 7 to 8% of your body weight is made up of your skin, and that is a surface area of about 1.5 to 2 square meters. The thickness ranges from about 1.5 to 4 millimeters. Now, that is going to depend on what part of the body it is. Obviously, your skin is thicker on your hands and feet than it is on your eyelids. Now, think about those numbers, 1.5 to 4 milliliters. So a sheet of paper is about 0.1 millimeter thick. So the thickness of the skin is somewhere between 15 to 40 sheets of paper. Pretty cool, huh? All right, let's keep rolling. When we look at the layers of the skin, the upper layer is actually many layers of stratified squamous epithelial cells. So this is many layers of flat cells. The closer to the surface, the flatter the cells. The dermis is the larger layer made up primarily of dense, irregular connective tissue running in many directions so the skin can pull and tug and move in many ways without separating or tearing. So the dermis is deep to the epidermis. Epi means upon. The epidermis is the top layer and it is avascular. So if you look right here where this pink little line, this darker pink line right here is, that is the very bottom of the epidermis. So from right here to the superficial surface is epidermis, and all of this is dermis. So you can see there are a lot of the derivatives or structures that are embedded in the dermis. The other thing to notice is you've got lots and lots of blood vessels down here in the dermis, but remember, epithelial tissues are avascular. So the epidermis made of that epithelium does not have a blood supply. So the farther away these cells are from the dermis, remember, we're making new cells down here at that base layer, and it's pushing the ones on top up higher and higher. So the farther away these layers are from the blood vessels, they're dying. The ones you see up here are completely dead. They don't get nutrients or oxygen, so those layers are dead. When we look a little bit more in detail at the epidermis, you'll see there are 5 layers or 5 different layers of cells. Now, some of these layers have multiple layers of cells, but we call these layers strata. So the first 3 strata, if we begin at the bottom, the base layer, so this one, and this one, these are the only living layers. The next 2 layers are dead cells, and that of course is what is farthest away from the blood supply, and again very highly vascularized in the dermis, avascular in the epidermis. Now below the epidermis we have the dermis, and below the dermis we have the subcutaneous or hypodermis. Hypo means below. This is not a true layer of the skin. Again, not a true layer of the skin, but it consists of areolar connective tissue and lots of adipose tissue. You can also see some of the connective tissue fibers from this lower reticular layer of the dermis are going down into that adipose tissue. And that helps to really just stabilize the position of the skin and anchor it to the underlying structures. The subcutaneous layer of fat pads and protects the body, but also acts as an energy reservoir because we can harvest that fat and use it to make ATP. The fat provides insulation to help us to keep from losing heat. Now, because that fat layer is very vascular, it is a very common site for sub-Q injections, okay, or hypodermic injections into that very vascular fat area for rapid absorption of those drugs. Now, the thickness and distribution of that fat layer are going to be influenced by sex hormones, testosterone, estrogen, progesterone. You're going to hear more about those later when you get into AP2. But under the influence of testosterone, which is the male hormone, sub-Q fat tends to accumulate around the neck, upper arms, abdomen, lower back, and the buttocks. Under the influence of estrogen and progesterone, the female quote-unquote hormones, sub-Q fat tends to be thicker overall, but it accumulates in the mammary gland or the mammary regions, the buttocks, the hips, and the thighs.